short for a stormtrooper?
No doubt, there are a massive amount of book series in the expanded universe, and even though it's been completely wiped clean, the writers are still clearly cherry-picking some ideas from it. So, with the help of Jedi Master Daniel 96, I'm starting a new mini-series on this channel called 5 EU stories they could have used for this new trilogy. And I'm also going to be discussing how some of these aspects might still apply to our current characters. We begin with a classic book series, released between 1999 and 2003 with 19 novels in total, titled The New Jedi Order. This book series was set 21 years after the events of Return of the Jedi, and it is by far one of my favorite parts of the mythology, and that is simply because of the Yuuzhan Vong, who were a race of extragalactic religious zealots that invaded the galaxy, planning to overtake the New Republic, even though being heavily combated against by our heroes. And eventually, they even managed to capture the capital of Coruscant. But of course, after some time, the galactic government is rebuilt and aided by the mysterious living planet known as Zanama Zakat, and the Yuuzhan Vong are overthrown. The Yuuzhan Vong would have been a fascinating story to focus around, not only because they are a race from outside of the galaxy, but they are responsible for 365 million deaths during their invasion. They believed in slaves, viewed technology as blasphemy, and above all else, they were unaffected by the Force. Truly fascinating, and by far one of the best choices to choose from the EU. Next up, we have another popular book series titled The Dark Nest Trilogy. This was a book series set in 3536 ABY, and it's actually a follow-up to The New Jedi Order and a prequel to another series called The Legacy of the Force. These stories tell the tale of Luke Skywalker, his New Jedi Order, and their confrontations with a hive-minded species known as the Killik, who the Jedi are in danger of being sucked into, hell-bent on conquering the galaxy, and interestingly enough, encroaching on Chiss territory. The novel also details a Queen Mother who is impregnated by Jacen Solo and later gives birth to a daughter. Eventually, the story culminates into a war between 3 different factions, the Chiss, the Killik, and the Galactic Alliance. Luke Skywalker, who is now the Grand Master of the Jedi, leads an assault on the Nest, ultimately defeating his enemy and restoring order once again. I think it would be a very interesting twist if 3 different factions ended up being brought into a war in this new trilogy. After all, there is so much we have yet to see, and that could include a race like the Killik. Set just 5 years after the Dark Nest books is the next series titled Legacy of the Force, which is a 9-book series detailing the fall of Jacen Solo to the dark side. This series is basically a continuation of the Dark Nest series, featuring an amazing villain, Luminia, Dark Lady of the Sith under Vader himself. Covering the events of the growing war between the Galactic Federation of Free Alliances and Corellia, this also includes many exciting characters such as Boba Fett, Lando Calrissian, the first cousin of Han Solo, Thrackan Sal Solo, as well as the first woman in the Imperial Navy to reach the rank of Admiral, Natassi Dalla. This is some mythology that could really do some character building with Kylo Ren, who many perceive to be modeled after Jacen Solo, meaning that included with the other brand new characters in Episode 8, we may get more people, dark side and light, that used to be close to Kylo Ren, exploring his deep connection to the dark side. After all, in the previous series, this is when Jacen Solo first abuses his power, so it almost sounds like Lucasfilm might still be heavily borrowing from these stories and plan to do something similar to these 2 series in the future. Keeping up with the timeline, next up is another 9-book series called Fate of the Jedi, and this one is set 2 years after The Legacy of the Force. At this time, Jacen Solo, or Darth Caedus, is dead, and the now Chief of State, Natassi Dalla, is leading the Galactic Alliance in a period of calm. Again, we can see them borrowing some ideas here, as this is a time where the Jedi are considered rogue soldiers that are too dangerous to leave without any restrictions, and Dala either wants to control them or disband them. But here's where things get really interesting, because this series also involves an unseen, faceless menace, even more insidious than the Sith, that was apparently awoken during Jacen Solo's dark side odyssey. So here we can almost hear a description of The Force Awakens when you think about it, because that description could easily be describing Kylo Ren and Snoke as well. And now, looking back on this series, I wonder if I should have titled this 5 EU stories they could have used, or 5 EU stories they are using. And last, but certainly not least, I've just got one name for you: Thrawn. Now, of course, we all know that Thrawn has made his way back into the world of canon, but it definitely would have been just amazing if they had decided to make him the main villain of this new trilogy, and introduce his backstory and pretty much everything from the EU that they possibly can. And actually, who's to say that Thrawn won't be returning at some point? After all, we still don't know if he could possibly be making a cameo in episode 8 or 9, and even if it wasn't this trilogy, they could always bring him into the next one, because with all of this attention surrounding this character lately, something tells me they are far from done with Thrawn. Well, my friends, that's going to do it for part 1 of this new mini-series. Again, a huge shout out to Jedi Master Daniel for throwing this list together, and you guys can look forward to the next 5 EU stories coming in just a couple of weeks. And of course, make sure you guys leave all of your thoughts, opinions, and ideas down below in the Great White Void. And as always, until next we meet, stay in a galaxy far, far away.